Okay, so here's what I got. When I put a negative in front of my square root, it reflects across the x-axis. Make sure you have that. If you don't have it, put that in there now. When you put a plus h, any number, inside the square root sign, it's like inside parentheses. That makes it move left and right. Since it says plus, it does opposite what you think because it's like parentheses. It's inside, so it's going to do opposite, so it's going to move left h units. If you put a minus h inside the square root sign, which is like parentheses, it's going to move right h units. If you put a plus k at the end, notice this is outside the square root sign. You're just tagging it onto the end. It's going to move it up k units. If you put a minus k at the end, not inside the square root sign, it's going to move down k units. This one you may need to copy this one because you may not have this one done because you'd have to remember what we did for quadratics. But if a is greater than 1, if the number in front of the x is greater than 1, that's a vertical stretch. If the number in front of the x is between 0 and 1, so if a is less, 0 is less than a is less than 1, that means it's a fraction or a decimal between 0 and 1, then it's a vertical compression. It will squish down. So let's do some practice like we're going to see on our assignment. We want to graph h of x equals negative square root of x minus 3 plus 4. So let's figure out what changes to the parent function have been made. Remember that the parent function looks like this. So what has changed? Well, first of all, we put a negative in front. That makes it open down or reflect across the x-axis. That's right. So it's going to reflect across the x-axis. Okay, when we put a minus 3 inside the square root sign, remember square root signs like parentheses, it's going to make it move left and right, but it's going to do opposite what you'd think, so it's going to go right 3. And then I put a plus 4 at the end, so now it's going to go up 4. So that's how it's going to change. So first of all, start at 0, 0, because that's where your square root parent function starts. But we're going to do these changes. The reflect across the x-axis, we're going to do that when we do our pattern. It's going to go right 3, so go right 1, 2, 3, and up 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Put your new starting point right there. That's where we're going to start. Now remember our pattern for square root function to find all the other points is up 1 over 1, up 1 over 3, up 1 over 5. Well, we're going to do that, but we're going to do it down because we had to reflect across the x-axis. So we're going to go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 3, down 1 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to approximate where that point would be, and my graph will look like this. And from that graph, I can get a domain and a range. The domain is, where is it on the x-axis? Well, how far this way does it go? It only goes to 3. So it goes to 3, and it actually touches 3, so that's a bracket, and it goes to infinity. Range, up and down. How far down does this thing go? Well, this arrow here means it's going to go to the right and down forever. So it's going to go from negative infinity up to 4. And it does touch 4. And so there's my domain and my range. Okay, let's turn to the next page and see what we got. Okay, on this one we have graph g of x equals 2 times the square root of x plus 1 minus 3. All right, let's figure out what the change is from our parent function, which was f of x equals the square root of x. Okay, first of all, they put a 2 in front. That's a vertical stretch by a factor of 2. A plus 1 inside the square root sign, it's like parentheses, so that's going to move left, right, and it's going to go left 1. Does opposite what you'd think. And then a minus 3 tagged on the end means we're going to go down 3. So if we start at our normal starting point, 0, 0, we're going to do the vertical stretch here in a minute. We're going to go left 1, down 3, and put our starting point right there. Okay, vertical stretch by a factor of 2. Instead of going up 1 over 1, up 1 over 3, up 1 over 5, I'm going to go up 2 over 1, up 2 over 3, and up 2 over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there is my graph. Now you can always put this equation into your calculator and check to see if you got it right. You can do that on your assignment also. I want you to be using your pattern so you don't have to do a table, but you can check it in your calculator. All right, domain, left and right. How far left does this go? It looks like it goes to -1, touches it, and then goes forever to infinity. Range, how far down does it go? It goes down to -3, touches it, and goes up forever to infinity. And so there's my domain and range. All right, the last part of this, write the equation for each of the following. Start with the graph of, this is supposed to say f of x equals the square root of x. We're going to shift 2 units right and 4 units up. Remember, always start with f of x equals. And so if we're going to go 2 units right, left means inside parentheses, but this is going to be inside my square root sign. Right, I would think would mean plus, but it's inside, so it's going to be opposite. Oh, it's supposed to be a 2, excuse me. 2 units right, I was looking at the next number. 2 units right, so x minus 2. And 4 units up, outside the square root sign, I'm going to add 4. Make sure you make that clear that that's inside and that's outside. All right, shrink by a factor of 0.5. 0.5, I don't know why they put 0.5. 0.5 is a half, so let's put a half. I like a half better. So we're going to graph this, or write the equation, f of x equals, shrink, that means compress, by a factor of a half, just put a half in front. And then shift 3 units up. Inside my square root, I'm only going to have the x because I'm not moving left and right. Outside the square root, I'm going to put plus 3. That's how I move up and down, is outside my square root sign. All right, reflect across the x-axis, stretch by a factor of 3, and shift down 1 unit. So f of x equals, reflect across the x-axis, negative. Stretch by a factor of 3, 3. Shift 1 unit down. Up and down's outside the square root sign, so you're going to have just square root of x, nothing inside with it, and then minus 1 outside the square root sign. That's a common mistake, is to put that inside with it. If it's inside, it's left-right. It's not up and down. Outside, it's up and down. Okay, last one, reflect across the x-axis, stretch by a factor of 2, and shift 5 units left and 3 up. So f of x equals, reflect across the x-axis, negative. Stretch by a factor of 2, 2. Shift 5 units left. That's inside the square root sign. Left would make me think negative, but I'm going to do plus 5 units. And then up 3, outside the square root sign, plus 3. Make sure you raise your hand if you have any questions. Okay, on the last one, we're going to take this graph and write a function from it. So all we have to do is figure out, well, how did it change? Normally, the graph starts here and goes like this. So it looks like it's going down, so that means that it reflects across the x-axis. Reflects over the x-axis. We'll just say it like that. That's one thing. Normally the graph starts at 0, 0, but this one's going to go 2 to the left. So we're going to say left 2, and then it goes up 2. Okay? Now this is not the answer. I wanted a function or an equation. These are just the directions that are going to tell me what to write in my equation. So my equation is going to start with f of x equals, always. Reflects across the x-axis, that's a negative. Left 2, that's inside the square root sign, and it does opposite, so it will be plus 2. And then up 2 is outside the square root sign, plus 2. And there we have it. And so you're going to do an assignment that's going to look just like this. And so if you have any questions, make sure you ask right now. Otherwise, I'm going to give you the assignment and we're going to work on it.